So, welcome to the Docker AI ML Hackathon introduction. And my name is Per. I'm in the Docker DevRel team, and with me I have Michael. So maybe you want to introduce yourself, Michael.
Sure. My name is Michael Irwin. As Per said, I'm part of the DevRel team here at Docker as well. Super excited to be here. I've been with Docker for about a year and a half. I've been in the community space for probably a good 6 or 7 years before that as well too. So excited to be here to help support this AI machine learning hackathon, and honestly, probably to learn a little bit myself because I'm still in the AI machine learning space as well too. So this will be fun for me as well too.
Sounds good. So, maybe I can just ask you a question. You've been in a couple of hackathons at Docker, our internal ones.
Yep.
What has been like the best hack you made in one of our own hackathons?
Yeah, good question. So yeah, a little bit more context there for those tuning in. So internally, we hold internal hackathons once a quarter, in which really anybody in the company can participate. Now, each hackathon usually has some sort of theme that goes along with it. Okay, developer productivity, which is pretty broad, or community and product, or lots of different things. And then really anybody can contribute to it. And what's awesome about it is that sure, at the end of it we do demos, but not everybody's got working code. There are people that are like, hey, I've got this idea, I put together some slide decks and some rough designs and just ideas and piece things together. So it really allows really anybody to contribute regardless of your background or your ability to actually write code. And actually the last hackathon we had, one of the winners wasn't even a development team. They didn't actually have any code, or a working product, and so that was really cool to see. um, and so for myself, I've done quite a few different hacks, and actually at DockerCon last week there was an extension that I built to help kind of support my getting started workshop that I ran. And in many ways the idea for that was kickstarted because of a hackathon 2 months earlier, and so I just kind of kept evolving the idea, and then hey, actually use it for the workshop as well too. So um, but it's pretty cool to see all the different ideas from all over the company that people have for these different hackathons.
Are you like a lone hacker, or do you prefer to hack with people?
um, that's a good question. I think it largely depends on if I already have an idea or not. um, so a lot of times I'll hack it by myself, just because I think it's a little bit easier to just heads down, get into the code and start doing stuff. But if there's a team of folks that have similar ideas, hey, let's all brainstorm, let's all work together. So I think actually out of the quarterly hackathons we've done internal at Docker, I'm about 50-50, whether it's been solo or with a team. So
Oh, all right, cool. That was the softball intro because I could hear like people coming in, so I just wanted to give them a little bit more time to kind of get
right.
settled in. Yeah. So that was my impromptu interviewing of you about hacking.
Rock.
Um, I did a hackathon with Yahoo like back in the day, which really tells how old I am. That was back in the day when Yahoo did these like hackathons around the world for reasons. And they did one with the BBC, and I ended up trying to hack together like two APIs, which one was like daily news, and then it would like fetch music that would be related to the daily news. And when I demoed this to the poor Yahoo people, the first news item that came up was like about someone dying in a war, and then it started playing some artist that had died recently as well. So it's kind of like a downer of a demo, but yeah, that's sometimes how it is. So all right, let's get into it. And I'll see if I can get this thing working. So this is the Docker AI ML hackathon, but we are not alone on this because Docker is really not specific to AI ML. Anyone who's used Docker for a lot of things before know that you can containerize anything. So we have made an alliance with a bunch of partners in the AI ML space, and these guys here, Neo4j, OctoML, Navan, Olama, and DataStax. And they offer a bunch of different both products and also free services to really accelerate AI ML. And I think pretty much all of these companies already have a way to actually combine it with Docker. But there are general purpose AI ML tools that you can use for a bunch of different things. I know we ran a workshop last week at DockerCon, which gave some very interesting like interpretation of the of their mascot Moby. Um, so they're partners in this workshop as well. So that's why we have them as part of the different enablement content that we have along the way these next couple of weeks. So, do you want to add anything here, Michael? Or are you just coughing?
Yeah, I mean, I think just I'll echo what you said here as well too. That it's as you said, Docker is agnostic to the type of application or the thing that you're building, and so for me, it's one really exciting to have some great partners here that bring a lot of expertise and a lot of knowledge into this space. Because as I alluded to earlier, like I'm still fairly new in the AI machine learning space as well too, and so you probably don't want to have me teach a lot of it because I'm still ramping up and learning. But so and as well share in a few minutes too. There's going to be lots of opportunities to connect and learn directly from many of these folks. With the OctoML workshop, as you talked about with DockerCon last week, it was fun to work with those presenters to help kind of prepare the workshops and everything. Their amount of experience and knowledge is it's vast, and they're really good at explaining it as well too. So I'm excited by all these partnerships and seeing what cool things we can build together.
Yep. And again, engineers from these different companies are presenting throughout the hackathon. So I think if you're new to AI ML and you just want to learn about the general ways of doing it and what these specific companies offer, then we have engineers from these different teams presenting throughout the next weeks. I'll show you a schedule in a moment, but it's kind of in a way to kind of combine and also introduce ourselves and everyone else to these different tools as well. Because again, and also Michael is in this session today to be able to really also give you a lot of like technical input about Docker itself and can really point people in the right direction. I can tell you how to align things perfectly in a PowerPoint slide. That's kind of my forte. So if you have questions about that, then I'm your guy. But Docker, anything Docker, that's Michael. So so let's jump on to this and just talk about the different sessions we have to just give you a kind of idea of what's going to happen. We still have a couple of things in the agenda that's going to be TBD because, well, it's a bunch of different people who need to get together and organize dates. So, but they're going to get in there. So some of them is just like a time slot. We just need to figure out when it fits with a specific engineer. Also, with that said, we are going to record all these things and we're going to post them on the DevPost site as well. So if you're going to miss any of these, there will be a recording. Of course, the obvious advantage of coming into these recordings or these live sessions is that you have a chance to ask questions. People from these different teams will also be in our Slack channel, so they will be able to answer your questions in there as well. We'll share this deck afterwards. You also see the recording, and this agenda will also be posted on the DevPost site. But this is the overall view. So we have presentations by the different partner companies, DataStax, Nava, and OctoML, and so on, presenting about their various products and also showing you in the context of Docker. So you can kind of see, how do I actually take this AI ML technology and use Docker to run my different workloads, train my models, and so on. We will also be running a couple of sessions. We'll specifically have like a mid-hackathon check-in to see how things going. Do you have any questions? Are you stuck in anything? Is there anything we can do to help you? Can we connect you with anything? And we'll also have ongoing office hours that we'll put in as well. So in case you have questions that you don't get answered today or in the Slack channel, you can also just drop in and say hi there. From our side as well, we also have Docker Hub and the Docker Desktop team, or the Docker Desktop extension teams will also present as well. Because it's like two very obvious points where you can pull a lot of data from Hub around our different images in there, around usage and so on. So the Hub team will come and present about this specifically. The extensions team is presenting around how you can extend Docker Desktop, and that's what Michael talked about before. That's actually one of the things he hacked together in a hack week internally and used for his own work last week when he was doing a workshop for 4,000 people online. So it really got a good test for last week. So they're going to come and talk about how you can really build plugins and extensions, and maybe that's a good combination with some of the AI ML work you're going to do. So, Michael, do you have anything here, or can we continue?
Yeah, I mean, again, just to echo some of these things. I mean, you'll pretty much see that the schedule here is there's going to be 2 workshops a week, and that's what we're aiming for. And a couple of things scattered here or there, but again, if you're brand new to this space, and honestly too, if you're like, I want to do this, but I am struggling, I look at this and okay, petabyte scale vector store, from DataStax. Okay, is that something I care about? Like, am I going to be working on something that, like, just still show up and get exposure. I mean, in many ways, exposure is the biggest thing here. To be exposed to the ideas, and maybe you'll get inspired with something else, or you'll hear a question and like, hey, actually, that gets me down a path I hadn't thought about beforehand. Um, and again, as Per said, we've got the Slack channel. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes as well too. But if you're struggling even like beyond just I'm stuck, but like I need help even just having an idea or what else can I build, like we're happy to help brainstorm ideas, or what are you passionate about, and let's get you going on a path as well too. So yeah, we want to help you as much as we can throughout this entire hackathon.
And also, to be fair, the headline doesn't say a lot here, especially if you're new to the space, but we are posting the full description and the agenda of each session, so you have kind of an idea of what you're going into, or just go for the exposure and just see what it is. So just a note on time. You can see there's two different dates and times on each one. It is not because we run the session twice, it's just simply two different time zones. So the first one is Pacific time and the other one is UTC. So just a note here, I'm very bad at time zones, but it is two different ones and it should fit. So yeah, Pacific time and UTC is noted here, but it's only one session. We don't run them multiple times. All right, so let's go on to the relevant materials. And Michael, can you take us through that?
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll first notice that there's a lot of QR codes here. We were trying to think of good ways to make this available and easy for you to access. We will take this slide and we'll share as a resource directly on the dev post materials as well too. So don't feel like you have to capture it right now, but you'll see that there's a wide variety of different things here. The top row, for the most part, are things on our official website or our blog, the docs, etc. Things to just get you going, getting started, guides, etc. And a lot of this is a little bit more just Docker oriented, so using containers or things of that sort. The top middle one, the blog, there's been a lot of really good, fantastic blog articles written. I think we're up to 16 or 17 blog articles for lots of different things. And many of those are actually, hey, I'm going to build an application with PyTorch that's doing inference on X, Y, or Z. And so there's many of those blog posts are kind of end to end. Here's an idea. Here's a use case. Walk me through how do I build this thing. And it'll walk you through an entire guide there. So feel free to take a look at that, get some inspiration from any of those blog posts as well. The bottom three are in many ways kind of actually very new features, new capabilities, new posts that came out of DockerCon last week. So down the bottom left, that Docker Gen AI stack, that's a partnership with Ollama, LangChain, and Neo4j and Docker that we put together basically this easy stack that you can clone this repository, run Docker Compose up. There's one or two configuration things you have to do before you do that, but it's all in the README. And then within just a couple of seconds, you'll have a generative AI application running on your local machine. And so there's READMEs about that. The bottom middle article there from Neo4j actually does a lot of the walkthrough of, okay, what is this Gen AI stack? How's it working? What piece is responsible for what? So again, for myself, who's still kind of new to this space, I'm still reading through, still digesting all the material. It gets fairly deep, but it's also a really good overview of what are the different components, what are the different things I need to be thinking about when I'm building a AI machine learning application. And so that's a really good article. And then finally, down in the bottom right, with a partnership with Ollama last week, they announced an official Docker image that's now available on Docker Hub. And so that's a blog post about that, but also includes a little bit more details and links to other documentation and whatnot on how to run Ollama and use that for yourself. And so these are 6 different links, 6 different materials to get started with. By all means, this is not fully inclusive of everything that's out there. There's a ton more out there. I'd encourage you, as you find new things, if there's other relevant materials, or hey, I found this blog really helpful, or this YouTube video, or even this TikTok video, whatever materials you find, please don't hesitate to share that. We'd love to collect that. We love to share it with others. Either share it to us directly if you'd like to do that, or drop it in the Slack channel and help each other out. Hopefully this can be a fun learning opportunity for everybody. And who knows, maybe we'll take your resources and put together a huge list and give you a shout out for it. So yeah, definitely let us know what you find helpful. This is just a couple of materials to get you started.
Yeah. And also another note on the partners, all the different partners are actually bringing some exclusive content, also exclusive access to some of these new products, and also some of them offer up free credits to use with their services as well. So it's generally also thought out to be a good introduction to what they offer, and that you can do it for free. I think even some of them offer prizes as well as a compliment to what is in the post as well. So anyways, we're going to post those details under each individual session, on each individual partner in there as well. So yeah, you can go and read more details there. All right, let's continue. So just a brief, like, what happens when. So we kick this off on the October 3rd, and today is October 10th, and now we're having this whole welcome thing. We'll have halfway check-in, and we also have a couple of ongoing like office hours along the way. And the submission date for submitting your hack is November 7th. So on the day before, that's when the last minute entries try to come in. We will have a last minute like support. How do you submit this thing in case something is broken or you can't get it to work? The dev post site is broken or whatever it is, then we are there to help. So we'll have a last minute support hour on the day before, and of course we'll also monitor the Slack channel as well. But if you want like rapid support, that's November 6th. But we are monitoring conversations on the Slack channel. So if you do need help, just give us a shout there, and we can definitely help also with the thing of like getting your thing submitted. And also, if you have any questions about the additional materials, you should do you need to submit a video? Should you have like a long description and so on and so on? Like what makes sense? We can definitely help you there as well. Right. So as we learned before, Michael is a bit of a half and half lone hacker and team hacker, but it can definitely help if you're diving into this new topic. Dive in together with someone else that can assist you, or you can bounce ideas off and so on. And both on docker.devpost.com and our AI ML hackathon channel on the Docker community Slack, you can find people. So simply just post there, introduce yourself, find someone who might want to build the same thing as you. I can highly recommend it. It's also a good way of meeting people within this space as well, make some connections and some network.
Yeah,
Right.
and I'll jump in there too and say, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's one of the really cool things about the Docker community, is that it's all about working together and building community and networking and just learning together, experiment. And again, I know we just had DockerCon last week, but for those that were able to go, I think one of the most positive things I heard from attendees that were there was just around the community and building relationships and building connections and everything. And I know, a lot of us IT folks tend to be introverts and, hey, just let me do my thing and get out of my way kind of thing. And I'm just going to go hack in the corner kind of thing. But yeah, I just want to encourage everybody, use this as a learning opportunity, connect with somebody else, and if you never know, you may make some lifelong friends out of it as well too. So I mean, at the end of the day too, I know we're all competing against each other too, so there's a little bit of that competition. You don't want to give away too much, but yeah, connect with others. If you need help with ideas, again, we're here to help out.
All right. And so that really just brings us to the end of this welcome introduction. And I think the rest of the time we're here, we can spend on any kind of questions that might come up. And you might not have any questions now, but again, summary of just what we showed you. We also share the slides and all the links and so on as well. So this is just summary. Docker Dev Post is the place, and you will get emails about all these things. We will try to format them a little bit better so you see the important links in there. So the most important thing is like highlight a little bit better. We take that feedback. Again, Slack channel, Docker is probably your help around like Docker, and the different links that Michael talked about before. Our partners have like extensive docs pages as well, and Docker blog is the place to go for these resources. But Michael already have the links in there, so I'm just saying what he already said before. And with that, unless you have anything to add here, Michael, then I'll go to the Q&A slide, and then I'll stop talking.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah, we're all very excited about me stopping talking. I think that's good. So all right. So let me just take this down so I can see if there's any.
All right, we got a hand up. Hurrah! Go for it, Gabby. What you get?
Yeah, so I actually have one kind of like comment and then 3 questions, but I want to give other people an opportunity to ask questions. So I'll just do one of them first. But first my comment. So kind of just to echo what Michael was saying, I think the best way to kind of like get your feet wet is to just like be completely like submerge yourself in the community. And yeah, I think that's like a great strategy. I am by no means an AI expert. I have worked with AI for a lot of my career. So when I worked at NASA, I oversaw a lot of the AI and machine learning and like predictive modeling projects. When I worked in finance, a lot of the stuff I did was AI aligned. And even now as a product manager, AI is really big right now. So, I have that perspective. I also have a startup with my husband that leverages, we actually built it using Docker. So, yay, Docker containerization. And we built kind of like an LLM based application and a website. So if anyone has any questions about maybe how to like deploy a website or deploy stuff to like the App Store or Google Play, I am on the Slack channel. It's just Gabby Shires and I'll do like an intro. I am more than happy to hop on a Zoom call, bounce ideas off of you or vice versa, however the phrase goes. And my husband, who is a developer, who is probably much more helpful, would be happy to jump on those calls as well. So yeah, end rant there. So that's my one comment. And I think my main question is, in terms of the problems that Docker is interested in solving using AI and machine learning, would anyone from Docker or otherwise be willing to maybe shed light on that and talk about some of the maybe like cool or novel ways that you'd like to go about coming up with solutions for those problems?
All right, who should go first?
Do you want me to go first? Well, now you said something, so go first. And
okay, sure. So yeah, maybe I'll start off with, so I know we don't publicly or quite often share, but I do a lot of what we call lunch and learn brown bag session trainings with a lot of our customer accounts and training developers and communities and whatnot. And one of the ways that I like to start that off with is actually talking and sharing our Docker's vision. At the end of the day, Docker's vision is to increase the time that developers spend on innovation and decrease the time they spend on everything else. So of course, like in the container world, it's a lot about, okay, how can we make sure environments are consistent between all the developer teams? How can we help them get started, get going quickly, and everything that comes along with that. But I think that vision, that motto still stands here, and we don't want to scope it. We don't want to like box it too much of like, hey, you're only allowed to work in this space or whatnot. But so really, like anything in that space that's really focused on developer innovation, developer productivity, helping developers just be able to do more development and enjoy the things that they love doing, which is writing code, getting stuff out the door, creating new features, fixing bugs, et cetera. So really kind of anything in that space is technically fair game. And I guess I'll leave it at that. Per, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think I will. Well, I think I'll just repeat what you said, but I think we have some judging criteria, and we've thought a lot about it again because Docker is a general agnostic tool for this. But I think anything that can make developers more productive in the space of AI ML, and that can be solved many different ways. Is that like a faster starter kit? Is that enhancing the Docker desktop in some way? Is it doing like an extension or something else in that space? And that can be many things as well. Is that like specific tooling for machine learning AI people that is doing like common tasks? Do you want to have that entire desktop so you can see your model data and so on in there? So we really want to keep it open. But again, I think it goes back to our vision that is what we feel are the most interesting things. But I think also once we say a thing, then there's a lot of things we haven't even thought about. So that is probably not the most directive answer for you, Gabby, but I hope that gives you some idea.
No, that was a fantastic answer. Thank you.
Okay, right.
All right, and you said you had 3 questions, so yeah.
No, it was comments. It was comments.
Oh, yeah. So 1 comment, 3 questions. So yeah, well, I want to just like make sure no one else has questions because I don't want to like, give other folks time.
I guess we could say it this way. Feel free to keep going. And if anybody else has a question that comes up, feel free to just raise your hand using the Zoom functionality, and then we can divert for a moment.
Yeah, totally. And I also love being interrupted because I talk all the time. So feel free to do that. So my next question, or it's kind of like a tangent and then a question. So I'm really passionate about ungatekeeping. So very specifically, I think that, kind of ungatekeeping artificial intelligence and machine learning is something that's been really important to me during my career and in my personal, and professional life. And I think that something like this is great because it, introduces, AI to folks who are maybe like in the tech space. But something that I think might also be helpful or useful is making even more digestible content that explains maybe even some more like foundational concepts like containerization and virtualization, and like the difference between like virtual machines and containerization and how they can work together. And then building off of that, how containerization supports artificial intelligence in just like a very like approachable way. And I was curious if there is any opportunity for people in the Docker community to maybe contribute to like a video series. So I think IBM technology has some really great videos that kind of describe, these different technologies, or maybe like blog posts or something to just try to make it accessible to the everyday person.
Yeah, actually, so first off, great observations, and it's something that we're constantly trying to improve, try to do better on ourselves as well. Because yeah, we know this space is very terminology heavy. It gets very technical, very deep, very quickly, and yeah, if you're new to the space, there's a learning curve with it, and that's just with containerization to begin with, and now we're layering on this whole AI machine learning stuff on top of it, and so now it's getting harder. Um, Honestly, that's one of the things I love about the Docker community, that there's so much content out there. Sometimes it's hard to find the content you want because there's so much content out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's a lot of really good stuff out there. And honestly, that's one of the things that we're looking at improving of, as we talked about earlier, okay, here's some relevant materials to get started. But as other materials are created, either shared with us through this hackathon, or, if you decide to do a video series or podcast, or, whatever it might be, how can we better collect that and make that available to others as well too? So that's an area that we're constantly looking to reevaluate and make better ourselves as well too. So, yeah.
Maybe also to just understand your question, Gabby. When you're also talking about this making it accessible, are you also talking about like representation of saying there's like one thing is to explain these concepts, but again, it very heavy, very quickly gets like very tech heavy. Also because a lot of people want to like show how great the thing is they're building, so it becomes like very advanced very quickly. That's a
Yeah.
general tendency.
Yep.
So it's also just sometimes it's also interesting just to see people who have like a very different perspective than you, like, oh, this was how I kind of stumbled into the things, and these things were hard. And it's actually okay to kind of say that these things are hard, because it kind of gives other people the appetite and the motivation to say, oh, okay, it is actually supposed to be hard, and I'll keep carrying on. But I don't know if that was what you were thinking as well. I was wondering.
Yeah, so I think that's a really interesting point. Like it is like these are, complex, topics in regards to technology. But for example, my mom, who is a first grade teacher and has never worked in tech ever, was asking me about containerization because like when I worked at NASA, I led this effort for like modernization. And she's like, so like, what's containerization? And I was like, well, like it's very complicated to explain, but like I don't want to say like, oh, it's too hard, it's over your head. So I kind of gave her this analogy of like, well, containerization is like if you went to like a takeout restaurant, you might not want to sit and eat it there. So they put it in a container for you and they give it to you, and you can go and you can take that container and eat it wherever you want to. Or, you can do things like for like if they put it in like a vending machine that was like warmed, you can like take it and get it out of that vending machine instead of having to put it in order and wait. And I think that when you explain things like that, it makes it more approachable. And then people might say like, oh, like that isn't as complicated as I perhaps thought. And I'm willing to maybe invest some time into learning about this. And some of the people in tech who I think personally that I've worked with who have the best contributions are people who don't have the typical developer, perspective. They're people like teachers, like nurses, who've kind of stumbled upon tech and who can, take this and, maybe diversify the use cases and the perspective. So definitely, I think like a video series or a podcast, I think that's a great idea that breaks these concepts down would be great. And I think it would just be beneficial to so many different, users or people who interact with Docker, all the way from like, high school kids up to people who are maybe, making career pivots and things like that.
Yeah. And that's a great call out too, because we've seen a rise in that, the non-traditional backgrounds, I think, is how it gets lumped together. Those that didn't come up through the CS, training, and the theater majors that switch over to computer programming and whatnot. And so, and especially as we're starting to see, even across the globe, as technology becomes more available to others, and especially on developing nations or whatnot too, that they don't have a lot of the infrastructure or the education that many of us might have benefited from as we were going through schooling and whatnot, of how we make these things more accessible to them as well too. So and yeah, using analogies, whether it's a takeout food or my wife still thinks containerization has to do something with Tupperware or something like that, but there's always things that we can do to make things more approachable and easier. And I'd love to see what ideas you've got in that space too. So
yeah, totally. I'll probably like meditate on it and then info dump into the Slack channel, which is one of my favorite things to do. So yeah, perfect.
Okay, sure.
I think there was a session at DockerCon last week about explaining Docker visually by one of the captains, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So one of our Docker captains, she's the way that she learns stuff is by drawing it out and kind of explaining it to others. And so she's got a lot of these Docker notes that she's put together. She actually made a book. She even was doing a book signing there at DockerCon, and that's just how she learned, because that's what makes sense to her too. So yeah, there's kind of both the blessing and the curse of this space. There's so many different ways that people can learn, and so it's like, how do you address all those different modes of learning? But it's
yeah. So yeah, no, I love the feedback. And definitely I will post some thoughts in the Slack channel. And then I think, like, not necessarily related, but kind of in the same vein, I was curious. This is like my third question, so I will be done talking after this, I promise. But if someone was to win or get, one of the, I think there are like 7 prizes, what opportunities would they have to work with Docker to implement some of the solutions? Because, again, like my personal experience with Docker is like, I led a modernization effort that was very heavily focused around containerization and, virtualization. I built an app using Docker, and I'm a product manager. So I have a lot of perspective when it comes to like, the voice of the end user and product market fit, and, the way that things should be designed, to like optimize, how they're used. So not that I don't know, I might have too much self-confidence here, but, if I was to like place in this competition, would there be an opportunity to work with Docker to get some of those things implemented?
I think that the correct answer is it depends on what it is, I think. And I think there's like part of the prize, of course, like also showing this to management or e-staff, as we call it, and expose Docker hands to it and give you feedback as well. What happens from there is that's an open process, and I think that really depends on the response and the potential collaboration, the chemistry, I guess. So therefore, it's very hard for me to say yes, that would be whatever it is we can go for. But I think anyone who you talk to about this would be all ears about like what could be potential, and then without promising anyone says yes or no. So that would be my like very correct answer. And I love the enthusiasm, and I love the confidence you come in with here. That's great. I love it. So
thank you.
Yeah, and I'll echo too. I mean, so we started this conversation about like our internal hackathons that we have here at Docker, and in fact, in many ways, it's kind of the same thing. So even, I've actually won a hackathon or two, and we have several different categories, so it's not like I'm the ultimate winner by any means, but I've won a couple of the categories for some of the efforts. And it just because even internal, just because you won a hackathon doesn't necessarily mean that, okay, great, now throw away all the work that you were doing and now let's go work on this particular effort and whatnot. A lot of times though, actually we've had, I don't remember what the number is, but a pretty good number of hackathon placements have ended up in product. It may take some time because of course hacks are hacks, and they're not stable production code, and there's a lot of duct tape and bubble gum holding it together and everything. But a lot of times it does help drive thinking in ways that we hadn't thought about before. And I think in many ways too, that's one of the hopes and one of the goals from this as well too. Like, hey, in a community, what are some things that you're thinking about that maybe we're not thinking about that can help maybe steer us in various directions and whatnot too. So yeah, as far as the specific, hey, first place winner, congratulations, now you've got a team here at Docker and you're going to build your solution, like that kind of commitment's not going to
oh yeah,
that's not there. But but we could probably expect that at least some of the submissions, some of the ideas will help steer some product directions and whatnot as well too. Of course, what exactly that looks like, it's hard to tell at this point.
Yeah, totally.
Great questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, very good question.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else?
And if you just want to ask your question in chat, that's also totally okay. Yeah, you don't have to raise your voice. It's totally fine.
Yep.
I can provide some entertainment while we wait for a potential question. We can just give them a minute. What kind of hack did you win with? Is that confidential? Like, what was your all-time winning hack?
Oh man. So actually, I mean, I'll since I talked a little bit about the extension I did last week, I can talk about that a little bit more. So we had a hackathon last quarter, so it was a couple months ago now, in which the theme was basically around Docker multiplayer and just like how right now when you install and you run Docker on your machine, it's a very personal experience. It's a very individual experience. And most of the collaboration is happening outside of Docker, through your Git repos or that kind of stuff. And so the hackathon idea was just like, how do we make it feel more like a team-based environment kind of thing? And there were lots of different ideas and everything around that. Since I knew I was going to be doing this getting started workshop at DockerCon, one of the particular applications that we use quite often is called the example voting app. And it's a 5-service app. You can vote cats or dogs. Dogs are by far the superior pet, so you already know where the right vote should be. I'm just kidding. But we use this quite a bit in a lot of our workshops. And my idea originally was, hey, can I launch this application completely on its own, but then run a Docker extension that basically hooks into that application behind the scenes. And then as you're voting dog or cats, it's actually taking the votes and then like kind of relaying it centrally. So if I'm running a workshop, for example, I can see, even though you just voted dogs or cats on your local instance, the aggregate across everybody that's in this workshop is, X dogs, Y cats kind of thing. And so even though you're, again, doing an individual based workshop, you feel like you're part of something bigger. And so it was kind of the idea with it. And I guess somehow I got enough votes and I was able to win one of the categories for the hackathon. But the idea kept evolving. And so for the extension last week that I built for DockerCon, as folks install the extension, you got the opportunity to provide your name and what country you're from. In fact, maybe rather than just talk about it, I can just show it, right?
Are you gonna demo things? And okay, let's go ahead.
What? I know.
Move. Like,
craziness. But so this was the extension, and I'm already logged in, so you don't see it, but the initial screen. But you can provide your name and what country you're from, and then it basically gives you this board of, hey, here's a bunch of challenges and things that you can do. And so, okay, this running containers for 200. Here's a prompt, and I basically need to then go launch a container that meets this various criteria. And then when I feel like I've done it, then I click this verify your solution button, and it basically is just running a bunch of test cases behind the scenes. Obviously, I haven't run it here. And so it fails. But once it works, then you get a success. And actually, when you first get it, confetti even falls down, just to make it fun. But behind the scenes, what it's doing is, and I can open this up here in another screen. If somebody's opted into it, there's a global leaderboard. And so for this particular work, behind the scenes, there were 145 participants running through the workshop that opted into sharing their data from 31 countries. And so I can see the heat map and how many challenges were completed. We're almost at 1,000 challenges, which is pretty awesome. And then kind of leaderboards. And I realized pretty quickly into the workshop that I had an off by one error where it says top 5, but you get 6, and top 10 and you get 11. But hey, math is hard sometimes.
You should have. I hadn't even noticed that. But it's like...
Yeah, I don't think most people noticed it either. But again, it was kind of the extension of this idea of, the hackathon originally was just, hey, let's do this multiplayer idea and make you feel like you're part of something bigger. And the original idea was around teams, but then I kind of took this and said, well, I'm running this workshop. How do I get you to feel like you're part of something bigger? And so it was just, kind of gamifying learning Docker. And so, yeah, we'll see where it goes after now that DockerCon's done. We may end up just putting it on the marketplace and anybody can run the extension. We may not keep the leaderboard going forever and whatnot, but again, a lot of these hackathons help inspire us of like, hey, we hadn't thought about training that way, or we hadn't thought about really a variety of just so many different areas. It's really cool to see the hackathons that occur internally. And some of our sales and account execs, for example, are thinking about very different problems than a lot of our engineers, and yet some of the ideas that they come up with are fascinating. So ideas can come from everybody.
Yeah, I was just context here. The thing you saw the leaderboard showing is a Docker desktop extension. We have the desktop extension team showing this in a session during these hype weeks. So if you have a thing that you want, that might make sense to actually integrate into Docker desktop because that might enhance productivity. You might have the right data at the right time, and so on and so on. That might be the thing you want to check out then.
Yep.
So I feel like you talked about a thing, you did a demo, and we didn't get more questions, which I think people had time to consider questions. So I think with this impromptu demo, and then let's say thank you to everyone for coming, and thank you for the questions. And of course, we'll share this recording and all the stuff we talked about in here. And let's call that a wrap.
Happy hacking, everybody. And if you think of more questions, you know where to find us now.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.
Thanks.